This is just the mic for the camera, for the camera. So it's live.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله الذي لا تراه العيون ولا يصفه الواصفون ولا تخالطه الظنون ولا يخشى الدوائر، يعلم عدد قطر الأمطار وعدد ورق الأشجار وعدد ما أظلم عليه الليل وما أشرق عليه النهار، ولا تواري منه سماء سماء ولا أرض أرضا ولا جبل ما في وعره ولا بحر ما في قعره. اللهم أنت أحق من عبد وأحق من ذكر وأنصر من ابتغي وأرأف من ملك وأجود من أعطى وأوسع من سئل. أنت الملك لا شريك لك وأنت الفرد لا ند لك، كل شيء هالك إلا وجهك، لن تطاع إلا بإذنك ولن تعصى إلا بعلمك، تطاع فتشكر وتعصى فتغفر. القلوب لك مفضية والسر عندك علانية، الحلال ما أحللت والحرام ما حرمت والدين ما شرعت والأمر ما قضيت، الخلق خلقك والعبد عبدك وأنت الله الرؤوف الرحيم. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، قال الله عز وجل في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من كان يريد العاجلة عجلنا له فيها ما نشاء لمن نريد ثم جعلنا له جهنم يصلاها مذموما مدحورا، ومن أراد الآخرة وسعى لها سعيه وهو مؤمن فأولئك كان سعيهم مشكورا، كلا نمد هؤلاء وهؤلاء من عطاء ربك وما كان عطاء ربك محظورا. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام فيما رواه عبد الله بن عمرو بن عاص رضي الله تعالى عنه قال: قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إن الإيمان ليخلق في جوف أحدكم كما يخلق الثوب، فاسألوا الله أن يجدد الإيمان في قلوبكم. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام: إن لكل شيء شرة ولكل شرة فترة، فمن كانت فترته إلى سنتي فقد اهتدى ومن كانت فترته إلى غير ذلك فقد هلك، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. My dear respected brothers and elders, mothers and sisters in Islam, it was just a few days before the Prophet left this world, specifically Isha on Thursday, when the Prophet came out of his house and he could no longer lead Salah. He kept falling unconscious. Someone had to carry him, hold him up. Finally, he couldn't lead Salah. So he then told the people around him to have Abu Bakr lead Salah, radiyallahu anhu. And the people that were in the room, starting with Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she said to the people that my father, his heart is very soft. And thinking of this scene right here where the Sahaba, all their life, for all these years, they have seen the door open of the Prophet ﷺ come outside, lead Salah, and today he's not coming. It's going to be so difficult for the people who are sitting there. And how difficult is going to be for the person who's leading the Salah. You know, those who lose loved ones, the first Salah after losing a loved one is very difficult. Because, I have so much appreciation for the mothers and fathers and brothers and siblings of shuhada all over the world. Because the first Salah they lead, they have to pray after that. They still have to say Allahu Akbar. They still have to say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. They still have to say Subhanakallahumma. They can't skip that. They still have to praise Allah. They still have to glorify Allah, and they still have to declare the perfection of Allah's plan, Subhan. And in every rukun of Salah there's Subhan. You have to still do that. You can't skip that, and it's very difficult. And then imagine leading the janazah Salah. The Prophet ﷺ knew that nobody could lead his janazah. It would be too difficult. That's why he said, when I pass away, just everyone prays janazah on their own. Leave my room and let the angels come first. They're going to pray first, then you guys come individually. So this was strategized and said that Abu Bakr should not lead Salah, just his heart's too soft. And when the Prophet ﷺ in one narration, actually Umar ibn Khattab started salah by saying Allahu Akbar, and the Prophet heard his voice. And he said, stop the salah. Nobody can lead salah in front of Abu Bakr anhu, as long as he's alive. No one can lead salah. And he led Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 15 salahs, one on Thursday, one on Monday. So that's 17 salahs he led when the Prophet was alive. So then he asked, why did you make this man, why did you not listen to my instructions? And the people said, because his heart's too soft. He would not be able to get through the first takbir. He said, well, whatever the case is, he has to lead salah. This same person, a few months later, he was sitting in the masjid in a group of people from Yemen. They came to accept Islam. Now, they went through so much to accept Islam. You know, every fruit and every food we eat, there's the food itself and there's the taste of the food. There's a fruit itself and there's the sweetness of the fruit. Today in the society, we are going through the rituals, ibadat, Jummuah, listening to khataras, but we are missing out the sweetness of it. And once you miss out the sweetness, you no longer want to eat the fruit again. You're not encouraged to go back and eat that fruit again. You have the mango in front of you, but it's not sweet. Forget it, I'm not taking the next bite. And this sweetness, ulama talk about it a lot. How can we recapture that sweetness? How can we make our lives in such a way that we don't become numb to hearing good things, listening to good things, reading about good things, praying in front of Allah? How can it be possible that we can live our life? I remember I went to New Zealand after the massacre that took place in the Shuhada, the 58 plus Shuhada in the masjid. And it was my first time in my life. You know, a lot of physicians are sitting here, but it was my first time in my life, and I believe Allah prepared me to see my brother's body. That I seen Shuhada in front of me with gunshot wounds. I couldn't even close my eyes. I couldn't even move. I was so blank. I didn't know what to do. And I remember leaving the rooms. I went to go to one person's house, and we went to the funeral home, and we were with some local scholars and some physicians from different parts of the world. I was going back to my hotel, and we walked by a restaurant over there, Nando's, which was halal there. Don't eat it here. I'm saying it was halal there. And we walked by, and everyone in my group, because they were hungry, we had a long flight. We had a flight from San Francisco to New Zealand, one city, then to Christchurch. We never ate properly in a day and a half, 2 days. So they wanted to eat food. So they stopped and they went into the restaurant and they ate food. I did not have an appetite for 2-3 days. I couldn't eat. And I realized it's because these people have seen this so many times, they're numb to it. It doesn't affect them the same way anymore. It doesn't get them the same way. But for me, it was the first time seeing it. It's like seeing the Kaaba for the first time. It's very spiritually uplifting to sit in front of the Kaaba and just look at the faces of those who are seeing it for the first time. Just look at their faces. They're seeing it for the first time. Even better than that, look at the face of a person who just accepted Islam and came to Makkah and Medina and struggled all their life. How they will look at the Kaaba. Why is it so much more uplifting for that person than it is for us now that we've seen it so many times? Should we be okay with that? And if we keep walking down that path, what's going to happen to us? I remember in my brother's funeral in Dearborn and his janazah, we were in the maqbara, and mashallah, a lot of you came, and we were in a different state of mind. Wallahi, the most alarming thing to me was that I had 3 different people ask me which restaurant is halal in Dearborn. 3 different people come to me. I understand it's a good question. But how, then you read about the people of the past, when Sufyan Thawr says, سَيَأْتِي عَلَى النَّاسِ زَمَانٌ تُمِيتُ فِيهِ الْقُلُوبُ وَيُحْيِي فِيهِ الْأَبْدَانِ. There's a time's going to come where hearts will become dead, and bodies there will be physical presences of people, but the hearts internally, the soul will be gone, that you don't even realize that you're not supposed to ask this question in this moment. This is not important right now. And Abu Darda radiallahu anhu says that in our times, if you went to a janazah, you would not know who to give azah to, because min huzni firaq an-nas, because people were all equally, they were all equally in pain. So you wouldn't know whose brother it was, whose sister it was, whose mother. Everyone's crying the same. They said that for 3 days we wouldn't eat food. Because we knew what the family is going through, so that pain of the family penetrated into our hearts. We were not absent from them. And today, Ahmad bin Hanbal saw a person at a janazah smiling, and he's hit him. He said, "You're smiling and you're laughing at a janazah? What is the state of your heart?" So how can we still be affected? So I was saying the story that of people of Yemen, they came after so long. And they find it, imagine they missed the time of the Prophet ﷺ. They missed it. They couldn't come at his time. They were traveling. They had to get arrangements, and they came. They didn't know the Prophet ﷺ passed away, but they reached there after the Prophet passed away. Shaykh al-Balkhi saw somebody dragging himself, a paralyzed person, dragging himself in the middle of the desert. He says, they told me I only have till 2:30, so I'm just going to skip the Arabic part. He says, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to Mecca." And he's like, literally, there's no wheelchairs, there's no electric wheelchairs, there's no planes. So he was dragging himself. He says, "How long have you been traveling for?" "How long have you been traveling for?" He says, 7 years. And here we are. If we have a long layover in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Istanbul, it disturbs us. If our taxi is not there right when we get there, it bothers us. And this person is traveling for 7 years, dragging himself to Mecca. So he asked him, he says, "Isn't that a long journey?" And he said, "Wallahi, the moment I see the Kaaba, I'll forget about my journey. The moment I walk into the city of the Prophet, I'll forget about my journey." Who cares about the journey? Who cares about the journey? The hearts were alive. So Abu Bakr saw these people from Yemen come, and they accepted Islam. And after accepting Islam, the way Quran was taught was not from a book. There was not a pamphlet, because there were people that had it in their hearts. It was from chest to chest. That's why we're not supposed to learn our Islam on YouTube. It's from person to person. So he told one of the Sahaba who were sitting there, "Now you guys go to that person, and he is going to teach you some verses of the Quran." Now these people have never heard the Quran in their life. They've never seen the Quran. You know how we see the Quran? Like this? If you read history of Kufa, there's different parts of the world, but there's tariq, people talk. If you read the history of Kufa, the first time they saw the Quran, the Mus'haf, there was 8 to 10 people who had to lift it because it was leather skin, so heavy. They had to lift it, they brought it to the masjid. So the first time people saw the Quran, they just started crying. هذا كتاب الله, هذا كتاب الله. They just started crying. And here this is always in front of us, so it doesn't give us the same impression. So here they sat in front of this person and they're going to hear, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, الحمد لله رب العالمين. As they're hearing it, they just collectively started crying. In Abu Bakr, the same person, I gave you the introduction of this man, who people did not want him to lead salah because his heart is so soft. What does he say when he sees this whole scene? He says, هَكَذَا كُنَّا, هَكَذَا كُنَّا. We were just like this. ثُمَّ قَسَتِ الْقُلُوبِ. Then we became used to it. We became used. Qasat means your heart becomes hard, but it becomes something routine, ritualistic. You become used to it. So how can we, in this era, avoid that numbness? You see, first of all, we have to identify that as an issue. We have to understand that the Prophet said, إِنَّ الْإِيمَانَ لَيَخْلُقُ فِي جَوْفِ أَحْدِكُمْ. Just like our bodies, when you use it too much, you're working out, there's a point where it comes, you can't lift anymore. Just like that iman in the heart, it starts to fade away. The Prophet says, فَاسْأَلُ اللَّهَ أَن يُجَدِّدَ الْإِيمَانَ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. Keep asking Allah, "Oh Allah, keep giving me the same inspiration from it." Don't change it. Don't change the way if I heard it for the first time. Imam Malik asked Imam Shafi'i when Imam Shafi'i came to become a student of knowledge. It's a powerful story. Imam Shafi'i writes it in his own memoir called Rihlatul Ilm. When Imam Malik, who was his teacher when he came from Mecca to Medina, and Imam Shafi'i was a great scholar. So he was a child, and the governor of Medina said, "I brought this student of knowledge to you so you can make him your student." And Imam Malik did not like shafa'ah. He did not like intercession. You have to earn your badges. So come sit in class. So he didn't like the fact that he came. So get out of here. So he threw his paper away like this. So Imam Shafi'i, he picks up the paper and he gives it back to his Imam Malik and he says, "I am a yatim. I'm a yatim, and I'm from Mecca, and originally born in Gaza. So Imam Malik then gets, all right, when someone gives you that introduction that you're yatim, you have to then give him some time. He says, okay. He asks him a few questions. He says, and one of the questions was, first he asked him questions of the Quran. Then he asked him, what is your interest, your hirs for knowledge? And he gave the answer and he said, I am so keen on learning, and I'll do anything to learn anything of ilm, more keen and more eager than a mother who loses her child. I'll do more than that. Then he asked him, what is the state of your heart and your mind when you hear good things? He says, Wallahi, my entire body wishes they were my ears so they could also enjoy like my ears are enjoying. He says, how do you feel when you hear the same thing the 1,000th time? You heard it so many times in your life. MashaAllah, we are a community. We hear amazing talks. Shaykh Abdul is a great speaker. You have all these great ulama, people, du'at. You have all these different things. You go on camps and you have programs. But what happens when you do the same thing so many times? How can we still benefit? And Imam Shafi'i says, I hear it and enjoy from it the same way as I did the first time. So how does that happen? And I'll conclude with this. This is how, the first thing is, our hearts are a place of thoughts. So it doesn't matter how much time you give to something. You can come to salah, but if your heart is not there with you, you're not going to enjoy it. You come for khutbah, but your heart is not there with you. Fudayl ibn Iyad, rahmatullah, he says, Hammuka, and please don't take these words literally. These are great scholars of Islam, and we don't have hours to dissect everything they said, but take it as it is. Hammuka bid-dunya, farhuka bid-dunya, yudhibu bi-halawat al-ibadah. The joy that you get out of getting, oh, your Bitcoin went up and the stocks went up and this happened, that happened, that joy, it removes the sweetness of ibadah. You should be happy, of course, no problem. But this overjoy and excitement and text and messages and this, yudhibu bi-halawat al-ibadah. Wa huznuka bid-dunya, yudhibu bil-ibadati kulli. And the fact that you start feeling grief over you lost something, you lost an opportunity. Brothers and sisters, Ubadah bin Samit on his deathbed when his son came to ask him, and I'm compiling words of people who, wasaya, like the last words the people said before they left this world. It's so powerful. Ubadah bin Samit on his deathbed, his son said, Dad, tell me something that you heard from the Prophet. You're leaving, you gotta give me something. And he's looked at his son, and his last words, he says, Ya bunayya. He said, oh my son, i'lam, anna al-abd lan yablugh haqiqat al-iman. A person can never attain the sweetness, the essence, the purpose, the reality of iman. حتى يعلم أن ما أصابه لم يكن ليخطئه وما أخطأه لم يكن ليصيبه. Until he comes to this conclusion in his life that nothing really bothers him or her too much. If it happens, you know it was from Allah. It wasn't my intellect. It wasn't something that I did on my end. You just praise Allah more. لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا مَا آتَاكُمْ. The fact that you don't grieve too much over it. And he says, and the thing that lost you, that you were supposed to get but you didn't get, you don't understand that you were never supposed to get it anyways. So Fudayl ibn Iyad says, that if you start having this, then you will end up losing ibadah altogether. And I conclude with this statement, that all of us, our hearts will be consumed by thoughts. Dawood alayhi salam, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, oh Allah, you have taught us how to purify our bodies, our limbs, by doing wudu, by doing ghusl. But tell us how to purify our hearts. And I'll say two different narrations. One is from Yahya bin Mu'adh and one is Dawood alayhi salam. And Allah said, "Bilhumumi, tahhir qalbaka bilhumumi wal ghumum." Purify your hearts with the right regret over sins, regret over things, missed opportunities of deen, not regret over what you could have done in dunya. And ham, aspirations. Purify your hearts with the right aspirations. I want to do this. I want to do, not aspirations, of course we should have aspirations of worldly life, But our aspirations in our heart should also be, hey, I want to start reading Quran every single day. I want to start doing whatever level I'm at, I want to get higher than that. And another hadith, another narration, Yahya ibn Mu'adh says, Dawa'ul qalbi, these are few things that will purify your heart, to make your heart in a state where it will accept things that you hear and you will enjoy it. That's the idea. We have to come to a point. Munafiqeen heard the Prophet ﷺ saying things, the believers heard. And we know the Quran. Every time munafiqeen heard, زَادَتْهُمْ رِجْسًا إِلَىٰ رِجْسِهِمْ. It just made them worse. And every time the believers heard, زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. They became even closer to Allah. They heard the same thing all their life, but they became closer and closer every time they heard it. So he says, قِرَاءَةُ الْقُرْآنِ بِالتَّفَكُّرِ. Start reading Quran with contemplation. وَخِلَاءُ الْبَطَنِ. Start leaving even permissible things, meaning it's okay to eat halal food, but sometimes it's okay to live a few days with an empty stomach. It helps. Imam Abu Hanif rahmatullahi alayhi, leaving things that are permissible, just be out of cautiousness. Imam Abu Hanif rahmatullahi alayhi, his shepherd took his animals to the souk, to the marketplace of Kufa. And he came back and he told Abu Hanifa, he said, Shaykh, when I was out grazing the sheep and the animals mixed with the other animals of other shepherds. But I counted how many I took, and I counted how many I brought back. I took this many, and I brought back this many. So there's no addition or subtraction from our herd. So don't think I took an extra one. Abu Hanifa asked at that time, what is the average age lifespan of one of these animals? And the shepherd said, 7 years. Abu Hanifa never ate meat for 7 years. Out of cautiousness. Because for him, the heart was more important than the body. He did not want to be in a position where he took something wrong, ate something wrong, and then because of that he cannot enjoy ibadah anymore. It's not worth it. Just like how Imam Shafi'i says, look, عَفَوْتُ النَّاسِ لِكَيْ أَسْتَرِحْ نَفْسِي. He said, I forgive people, forget my reward in akhirah. I forgive people so I can enjoy in this world. I can be comfortable. Otherwise, standing and walking and doing things with the grudges is tough for the person who has a grudge. This is Imam Shafi'i's statement. He says, so the second thing, khila al-batan. The third thing he said, وَمُجَالَسَةَ الصَّالِحِينَ, sitting around pious people. It helps. The fourth thing he said, qiyamul layl, getting at night, praying 2 rak'ahs, right after Isha or before Fajr, whatever works for you. وَالتَّضَرُّعِ عِنْدَ السَّحْرِ. The fifth thing he said, speaking to Allah in the early hours of the day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who our hearts never become numb to the greatness of Allah, to the different favors Allah has given us. This deen is so rich. You go to different places in the world, they have such shallow things that motivate people. But we have so many things in our deen, so many stories of Sahaba, Salaf al-Salihin, the life of the Prophet ﷺ, every verse of the Quran. But imagine our hearts become numb to it, then we cannot be motivated by it. We cannot enjoy it. So Allah keep our hearts always accepting of these things. Allah never make us among those who do good deeds out of just being a ritual and habitual, but rather we do it because we enjoy it. And even when we don't enjoy it, we keep doing it till the day comes where we start enjoying it. Not that we leave it when we don't enjoy it. Allah make us among those who act upon whatever was said, bring it into our lives and convey it to others. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده المصطفى ما بعد إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد الأمي وعلى آله وسلم تسليما اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر من نصر محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وجعلنا منه معهم اللهم خذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم ولا معهم اللهم اشف مرضانا وعاف مبتلانا وارحم موتانا إنك حقا على كل شيء قدير اللهم حبب إلى الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين آمين رب العالمين إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله تعالى أعلى وأولى وأتم وأما أكبر قيموا الصلاة. Please make your line straight inshallah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر